Well, after a very game-changing twist, there is a lot of questions to be answered and a lot of secrets to be revealed. Hey guys, here for The Exorcist, Season 1, Episode 6, Chapter 6, Star of the Morning, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode, more than any episode of The Exorcist I've watched so far, mainly because of that game-changing twist. I mean, that twist was incredible. I still can't believe how well they were able to pull it off. I thought it was just an incredibly well-done twist, and I was really looking forward to seeing where exactly we were going to go from here, because I really did not know where the show was really going to go, and I have to say that while there were some really great things about this episode, this for me was the worst episode so far. I think this episode had some really good stuff to it, definitely, but it was kind of messy. There was a lot of stuff going on in this episode, and with 5 episodes left, I'm hoping the show doesn't get messy, but I feel like it's about to. I mean, the show was very simplistic, but this episode introduced like 5 new plots, and because of that already, the show is getting very messy, but let's just get right into it, because I do have stuff to say about this episode. Don't get me wrong, this was not a bad episode at all. This was actually a very well done episode. Just out of them all, I felt like this episode in general was quite messy, but let's just get into it. So we start off, and now that we know that Angela is actually Regan, we start off where we see old interview of Wake Up San Diego. Not Wake Up San Francisco, I thought of that immediately, but it's actually Wake Up San Diego. And it features Regan and her mother, Chris, discussing Chris's book, The Devil and My Daughter. And you see the fact that Chris is kind of basically made a name for herself because of this. She's kind of making this, she's buying into it. She's using her daughter for publicity, and you definitely do see that here, and that very well goes with Chris's character, definitely. And Regan's very quiet, but she's not shy, and she doesn't like talking about the time period when she was possessed, mainly because obviously how much it affected her and how fucked up she was then. And she remembers very vague details, including not being able to control her body. She also remembers a voice asking her to come closer, but that's about all she recalls. She doesn't really remember anything else, or at least admits remembering. Maybe she does, but obviously she doesn't just want to say, what actually happened on live TV. So she's asked if maybe there's another explanation other than possession, but she's positive that it was real. Nobody seems to believe her, and I thought this was a really great way to start things out. And that, the scene with the host is just drilling her with questions, and the girl who played young Regan was very convincing. You really did feel like this was the same Regan girl. I mean, obviously they can't get the original Regan from the movie. I was hoping they'd get, I was hoping that they would be able to get, what's her name from the original Exorcist? I can't think of her name. Oh, Ellen Bernstein. I was hoping they'd be able to get her. Unfortunately, they didn't. But I think they did a good job of what they had here. But the host really does get into a lot of things, such as, the question of if you go to college, how are people really going to look at you? And that's really, I think, the reason why Regan changed her name to Angela, because she just couldn't see herself as Regan McNeil. She needed a fresh new start. She could no longer function as Regan McNeil. She just wasn't Regan McNeil, and that is why she is the Angela Rand she is today. So a really great way to start the episode, and the entire episode focused on the relation between Regan and Chris, I would not be complaining. Unfortunately, that's not all the episode focuses on. So Kat will talk with the grandmother that she's never met, as Angela can be heard in the background angry at Henry for letting Chris into their home, and Chris tells Kat that she looks a lot like a young Chris McNeil, especially her mouth, and wonders if anyone has ever mentioned that to her. And I thought it was a really well done scene. Kat is obviously very thrown off by what's going on, but she's also very interested in what Chris is telling her about, because Kat now knows that her sister is in fact possessed, that this wasn't something that she was faking, this wasn't that her mother was crazy, she is in fact possessed, and you really do see that with Kat here. So in the kitchen, Henry's angry Angela never told him about Chris, and that's understandable, obviously. I mean, this is something that she probably should have told him, and you understand why, obviously. I mean, it's not easy to say, hey, I was possessed all these years ago, and I did these terrible things, but here I am now. It's just not really easy to do that. And while in the living room, Chris explains that she tried to track her daughter down, but she couldn't find her. She saw the news report about Casey, and the way that is very much kind of a repeat of what happened to Regan, I think, is overall very interesting. She's missing, and that's how she found Regan/Angela. And Kat wants to know if Casey's possession is like Regan's. Chris says she hopes not. Kat admits she called the police and believes it's her fault that Casey's missing. She thinks this is all her fault, but I like that Chris reassured her that, no, this is not your fault, this is kind of out of your control, there's not much you can do, because no, it's not really, I would not say that it is Kat's fault. I think that Kat did what she felt was right. She made definitely a rash decision, but I understand why she did it. I totally understand that, so I'm not upset that she made the decision that she did, but I thought overall that was really well done. Henry then tells Angela that Chris can stay because she may be able to use her fame to draw more attention to finding Casey, and Kat's okay with giving up her bed for a few nights so her grandmother can stay with them. And I get what Henry's saying. Now they are out in public. Everyone knows about the Rance family, and we see the police and volunteers are searching for Casey. Now, something that really did bug me is that this episode, we never get that time with Casey to see her on her own, where she went, where the man tricked her into going. We don't know any of that stuff, and that kind of pissed me off. We had this really great focus with Casey in the past 3 episodes that I think we were really missing here. We didn't get to see the man, we didn't get to see anything from Casey's perspective, and that really felt like something was missing, and that void definitely was there in the episode. And Father Tomas is also volunteering, as are Casey's family members, and at the volunteer center, Angela remains angry about her mother's involvement, having to revisit her own past, but even at the volunteer center, Chris is being approached by fans. Everyone seems to see Chris as this celebrity, someone who, is praised for doing what she did, proving that Henry right and believing the search for Casey will garner more attention with a well-known actress involved, which is a very smart idea. I mean, it seems kind of silly, but I get what Henry's saying. Chris is very well known. This will get more people to want to search for Casey. The more people know that Chris is back, the more people want to search for Casey. Now, that overall was a very smart idea, and I totally do understand where Henry's coming from in that regard. But at the same time, you can really see where Angela's coming from here, too. She meets in private with Father Tomas and Marcus, who are both understandably angry that she didn't reveal her history, because this is probably something they should be in the know about. I mean, the fact that, she feels this way, and the fact that, she kept this from them is obviously something that really is a detriment to their relationship. They felt they were much closer, and now they're not. And Father Tomas says the police think someone helped Casey because of the strength it took to take out the ambulance workers. And Marcus believes that the demon will ultimately force Casey to submit, and they will become integrated in Casey's body, which we know is exactly what the man's trying to do. And that would make the possession permanent, and would destroy the soul, so that an exorcism wouldn't really matter. They wouldn't need to do one. And if they don't find Casey quickly, there may be nothing left to save, because the demon might become embedded into her, and it might just become a part of her. There might not be a Casey Rance anymore. And again, this is the kind of stuff that I really wanted to see. I kind of wanted to see a scene of Casey on her own. I think it just would have made more sense to do that. In fact, do an entire episode of that. It would have made more sense. But for some reason, they didn't. I get it. They had the limited episode length, but that definitely did kind of ruin parts of the episode. Not ruin, but it just kind of was missing. Definitely, I would have wanted to see a little more. Even if it was just one scene, I still would have liked to see something with Casey on her own, definitely, because it's really good stuff so far with them. But Angela says when it happened to her, people thought that there was nothing left of her, but she was still in there, and we know that's very true. I mean, if you watch the movie, it seems like Regan is a lost cause, but luckily they were able to save her, and I like the way that was done. So Marcus leaves the room angry, telling Tomas he's off to hunt for Casey. He needs a police scanner, and when Tomas offers his help, Marcus will have none of it. He reminds Tomas he's been compromised, but Tomas says it won't happen again. Marcus thinks that Tomas is a good man, but he has too much to lose and can't be an exorcist, he feels, which is true. I mean, after what Tomas has done with, I always forget her name. I can't think of her name. What's her name? With Jessica, after what he's done with her, there's no way that he's going to be able to be a priest again. Because again, he's had sex. So there's really no way he can do that. And I understand why Marcus is saying that. So a police press conference asks for the help of the public. And Father Tomas announces a $100,000 reward for Casey's recovery. Pretty sweet deal, I'd say. And Chris takes the time to announce that Casey is her granddaughter, while a woman yells asking about the 9 people of color who were murdered just blocks away. Really well done scene, because that is definitely a big part of this. I mean, it's not the fact they were just people of color, but also the fact that they were murdered. I mean, these people were savagely murdered, and it's very hard to forgive, and the attention has been focused on Casey and not the murder victims, and citizens are understandably angry. I mean, these are people who were innocently killed, and they haven't really focused much attention on them. They've been so intent on Casey and just in general, they haven't really focused on, they haven't really focused on, the murder victims, and you totally understand that. I think this scene was very well done. The way you see all of them, the body parts are stolen from the murder victims, they're being placed on trays and burned with the ashes collected in what looks like a ceremonial jar. Very hard scene to watch, because you really do feel for these people. Even though you didn't know these characters, you understand what they're going through, and the grief really plays a big part of this episode more than ever. So to the house and ask about Marcus. They want to know about the exorcism, and they have more questions for the priest, with Angela lying that Marcus was the only priest involved. Obviously not true, but the police, and she's doing that obviously to protect, Tomas's ass, but the police know that Casey broke a man's jaw and was in the psych ward, which makes them question whether she actually attacked the people in the ambulance, and Angela looks at the crime scene photos and asks if the victims had families, and we then see Kat. She finds the Wake Up San Diego interview online. Chris tells her the book wasn't her finest hour, and she actually does regret it, we see, which is understandable. I mean, this is really what ruined their relationship. You could argue that the possession is the thing that ruined it, but in general, I think this is like the key thing that kind of ruined their relationship. And Chris tries to explain the scandals back then and how it affected her career after she was labeled a devil worshiper, and much worse, because again, it seemed like she kind of used her daughter's possession to garner her attention to the press, and the publicity was bad for her career, and she was dropped by the studio. And Kat asks why the demon chose her mother. Chris says they were staying in a house where there was a Ouija board, and Regan said Regan loved it. That's when she met the demon, Captain Howey, and Chris warned her to stop but didn't pay enough attention. This is all stuff we know, we know this from the movie, but they did a good job of, if for some reason you didn't see the movie, they actually told you exactly what happened, and I like that. And Kat says that her mom was just a kid, didn't ask for any of this. I kind of would have wanted to see maybe some of the footage from the movie. I think that could have been cool if they did that, but I don't know if it's a company thing, if maybe it's a different company and they can't show it, or if this is just trying to stick out on its own, but I kind of would have wanted to see that. I don't know why they didn't do that. I just think might have added to this. But Angela outside the bedroom door listening in, she hears her mom takes the blame for what happened all those years ago, and she knows that she wasn't there for her daughter, and this is really something that's upset Angela, you definitely see. So at the volunteer center, Maria Walters is fine with the fact that the donation was used for the reward. Kristen Fitzgerald, this character, I think is going to play a big role in these last 5 episodes, but she asks about the exorcism he wanted to perform, and Father Tomas doesn't want to talk about it. She invites him to an event that night at her house and tells him he'll meet influential people if he attends. So his meeting with Maria is interrupted by Jessica, who shows up unexpectedly, and obviously there's going to be something going on there, but Marcus and Father Bennett pay another visit to the tour bus driver and hosts who are experts on the supernatural occurrences taking place in Chicago. They found a surprising connection between Maria Walters and the weird events, and they've discovered that the vans that have been picking up people on the streets are actually owned by the Walters company, and the people who accept a ride in the van are never seen again, which is very creepy to think about. They've also learned that the Walters have given a $1.8 million donation to the Friars of Ascension, the group sponsoring the papal visit, which definitely makes us think again that the Catholic Church could very well be heavily involved with this. You definitely get that sense, and if that's true, that's a very risky direction for the show to go in, but I think would definitely make sense if they did go in that direction. So Angela mans the phones at the volunteer center, and a male caller asks her if she thinks God is punishing her for being a bad little girl. He calls her Regan and says she wanted him in her, and so does her daughter. He offers to tell her where she is, saying that Casey's standing right behind her. Angela looks up, she sees a demon behind her and screams, and I was honestly freaking out at the scene. I thought that the demon was going to go back into Angela. I mean, I really had no idea what was going to happen here. It really made me think that maybe something was going to happen to Angela. I really thought this was a very well done scene, the way that they did that. But Jessica and Tomasin go for a walk, and obviously things are very awkward between these two. I mean, they've had sex, and Jessica knows it was wrong. He asks if she's feeling guilty. She says the world owes them a little happiness, and she's not apologizing for what they did. She left her husband, handing him a key to the new apartment she just rented, and I've said it before, I mean, Tomas in general, when you're a priest, you're supposed to be in love with religion. You're supposed to be in love with the church, and Tomas isn't. That's the thing. He just simply isn't in love with the church. He's not willing to put his own relationships aside for the church, which is another reason why he can't be a priest. And Jessica, that is the person that he truly loves. And basically, Tomas says he won't visit her there. Jessica says that that's fine, and just a really well done scene between these two. You get the sense that he probably is going to start something with her, and definitely a season is going to end with him not becoming a priest anymore. I mean, right now he has to be, but he's probably going to discontinue that soon. soon. But back at the volunteer center, Henry wants to know who the woman is in the photo album that Angela's always claimed was her mother, and Angela confirms it was just a random stranger, and Henry's disappointed. Half of what he knows isn't true, and you really do sympathize with Henry here. I think this was probably one of the episodes where Henry was the easiest to read. I mean, yeah, Henry's someone that forgets a lot of things, but now I'm starting to think that maybe he doesn't forget as much. Maybe Angela just said that to him because she didn't want him to really know what's going on, and the fact that he does forget a lot of things, I mean, that really does play into this, that half of what she told him isn't at all true, and Angela says she's never lied to him about their life together, but Henry makes the important point that they didn't even tell him the truth after it started to happen to Casey, because they didn't. They tried to hide it from him all they could, and he had to find it on his own. So Henry feels very betrayed, and you definitely are getting the sense that it's starting to really hurt their relationship. I could definitely see these two not getting a divorce, but it's definitely going to ruin the relationship, just like Regan and Chris's relationship was tarnished by the last exorcism. I think that definitely is going to ricochet with Angela and Henry. You definitely see that. So Tomas returns to Volunteer Center in a horrible mood, but then he hears one of the volunteers talking about a pack of wild dogs going crazy in their neighborhood, and he texts Marcus the news, knowing what's going on there. So Father Bennett attends Walter's party, but now he's suspicious of her motivations, and a professor is talking about Lucifer coming to Earth, and Maria tells Father Bennett a lot of influential people support the friars. These influential people are discussing how rogue angels are the architects of all we hold dear, knowledge, art, etc. Definitely got like a Rosemary's Baby vibe from this. Very weird overall, the way that's going, but again, you can definitely tell something's going on there. But back at the Rand's house, Chris is talking to a reporter about their lives. Angela overhears and throws the reporter out, understandably. I mean, she wants nothing to do with any of this. And while Chris tries to explain she was just attempting to help, Angela is done with her intrusion into their lives, tells her to pack up her things, and Angela screams about her family falling apart and how Chris is making this about her, which is what she did when Angela was a child. She asked her mom how could she have exploited her as a child. Chris says she did it because they didn't have any money, and it's then that Angela admits that she always knew where her mom was, but she never reached out, and it's mainly because of the fact that she didn't want to. I mean, again, her mother was exploiting her for publicity. How could you not want to contact your mother? I mean, what kind of bullshit is that? All she did was she didn't even sympathize with her. She just didn't treat her like her own daughter. She treated her like she was property, and that she was using her to garner attention. And this is something that definitely very upsetted Angela. All she really wanted was for someone to really love her and love her for who she is and be able to move past it, but Chris just couldn't. And a call comes, Angela takes it, it's the coroner's office, and they may have found Casey, we find out. So back at Maria's exclusive party, priests thank Maria for her hard work, while Father Bennett asks the professor if he's ever seen a demon. Father Bennett says he has, and as he walks away, Maria and her guests exchange looks, and again, I'm not really into this, I have to say. I mean, just all of this doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, and I don't know why we had to get Maria so heavily involved with all this. I don't really know why. You know, they're acting like Maria was a character we've seen before, and we haven't. So the Rand's family arrives at the coroner's office, are forced to make their way through dozens of photographers and reporters. I mean, again, they're famous, so they have no, they can't do anything else, and Father Tomas is also there. Chris tells him she wished she'd stayed involved in Angela's life. Angela and Henry are taken back to view the body, and it's not Casey. Upon receiving the news, Angela's finally happy to hug her mother and cry, and it's a really well done scene, because Angela realizes, why, that, Chris really does feel bad for what she did. Just a really well done scene overall. I'm hoping we get more between these two, because it's one of the most compelling things this episode gave us. And Marcus investigates the pack of dogs, finds rats fleeing a tunnel. Homeless people are in the tunnel, acting as if their bodies aren't theirs. They're swatting at unseen things. One man reached out to Marcus to stop it. Marcus continues to call out for Casey. He ventures further into the tunnel. Marcus has to yell, "In the name of Christ, get back," as the homeless man begging to stop what's happening. Casey crawls on the wall. She crawls upside down and backwards towards Marcus, which is incredibly creepy. I mean, definitely you get, like, that scene in the stairs that was on the extended cut? That's very much what this felt like to me, as the stairs scene, and I think it's definitely what they were trying to do. But meanwhile, Maria and her guests receive the news that it wasn't Casey at the morgue. A latecomer, a priest, makes a big interest, telling a story about the farmer's market and knocking over apples. He wonders why Father Tomas isn't there. The group tells him that Father Tomas will be a tough nut to crack, and Tomas breaks his promise. He shows up at Jessica's apartment. He tells her they can't sleep together, and she's okay with that, actually, and she understands why. I mean, again, he wants to be a priest. He can't sleep with her if, if he's going to be a priest. That's just not how it's going to work. So at Maria's gathering, members of Friars of Association sit around the table where the priest presents the container filled with ashes. He asks for the devil to rise and walk among them. They all hold hands they all hold hands to request the devil's presence. He scoops with a handful of ashes, blows into the air. They all ask for the devil to take control of their bodies, with Maria begging for him to take her. The ashes choose someone else, and that man gasps loudly, then looks around the group. He stands smiling while everyone except Maria hug and laugh. Not gonna lie, I have no idea what is going on in this plot at this point. I am very confused. I don't know if they're trying to say that this is supposed to go with Casey's possession, if they're part of it. I mean, just in general, I honestly have no idea. It just doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. But I did really like the way this episode ends. We see Marcus has made his way to the beach where he does find Casey. She's eating a bird and growling, and it's nearly pitch black outside. He approaches Casey in the water. She attacks him. They struggle. He's finally able to hold on to her, dunking her under the water and trying to rid Casey of the demon. She luckily does stop struggling and then stops moving. He holds her in his arms, and then she opens her eyes, gasps for air. She tells Marcus that the demon is coming back, asks for his help, and that is the way the episode ends. Really good stuff overall. Just a bit messy, but let's just get in this episode and talk about where I think the last 4 episodes of the show are going to go. So overall, I didn't think this was a bad episode. I definitely do want to preface that. I just felt that the quality of this episode was much lower than the other episodes were. There were definitely some really good things this episode, like Chris and Angela's relationship, like the stuff going on with Henry, even the stuff going on with the Rance family in general, I found to be really, really compelling. It's just a lot of this stuff, there was just a little bit too much going on in this episode, definitely. I feel like if we made spend more time with Casey and her out on her own, seeing really what she was doing, because we don't really know what she's been up to. You know, where was he really taking her? You know, if Marcus wouldn't have found her, where is she going? We really don't know what she's up to and where she's really going to go. So that definitely left me a little bit unsatisfied. But what I really did like is the stuff between Angela and Chris. Those two, I mean, obviously they have a very rough past. The fact that Chris, we see she wanted to, she wanted to, treat her daughter, in this way where she was using her for publicity and things like that. You totally understand why Angela would feel that way, but I like that they do seem like they're starting to make amends. And if Chris is really the thing that's going to help them possibly save, if she's gonna be a thing that helps them possibly save Casey, that's gonna be very interesting. Now, I don't really understand why Chris is really there. She seems to just come out of nowhere, except, this is the way we tie the Exorcist to everything. They didn't really explain that as well, and I wish that they did a twist that she was like an Exorcist. I know some people thought that, but I don't really think that's where that's gonna go. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what's going on in Maria's plot right now. I just find it to be very confusing. This cult that's come out of nowhere, I don't know if they have ties to what's going on with Casey. Just everything about that is very confusing to me. It kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't really know where that's going to go. She seemed like she was just going to be an FBI agent, but no, then they made her like this whole cult of sorts, and it just got very confusing after a while, so we'll have to see where that's really all going to go, because I honestly don't know where that's all going to go. I do think that the Catholic Church is heavily involved in this. Brother Bennett obviously is not, but I think that definitely the Catholic Church is somehow involved, but we'll have to see. That's going to be interesting. I really do love where we're headed with Angela and Henry. These two really seem like this is really starting to affect their marriage, and it's understandable. I mean, the fact that she lied to him, and the fact that she completely went against everything, not went against, but completely, just fabricated these lies and didn't tell them what was really going on. It obviously is really starting to hurt their marriage, and I really do love where that whole plot is going. I think that's definitely going to be very interesting, and I like that they're actually giving Henry more to do than just him, forgetting things all the time. There's definitely more than that, and I really do like that. Kat, I like where they're going with Kat as well, with Kat really feeling like this is her fault. There's definitely going to be a lot of amends between her and Casey, as we're going to see, so I think that's going to be very interesting on the way that all goes. And then the only other thing to talk about is Tomas. Like I said, I think Tomas at this point, there's absolutely no way that Tomas can continue being a priest after what he did, but I feel like he definitely is trying to be, but I don't know if he really can do this. I mean, it doesn't seem seem right to me. It seems like there's no way he can be a priest again, but we'll have to see where that's really going to go. But that's my review, guys. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. I didn't hate this episode. I just felt that the quality of this one was much lower than the other ones were. It was definitely very messy. I think we focused way too much on the Colts, and I think we could focus a little more on Chris and Angel, which we did, but I just want a little bit more going on there. But that's my review. Hope you all enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Luke Cage. I know it's been a while since I reviewed it. I will explain why in that video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.